This is Judith Lay welcoming you to Manx Radio and to the podcast of this week's edition of At Your Service.
Manx Radio!
Our programme today is all about stories, including some that I've chosen specially for this Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all dads and father figures and to all parents and carers whose memory we treasure. I remember a vicar once saying that God gives us the model of how to be a perfect parent. The chance to be a parent is a wonderful gift, an awesome responsibility and a tremendous challenge. And despite our best efforts, we all sometimes fall short. But no matter who we are or how messy our life becomes, in God we find a parent who offers unconditional love, non-judgmental forgiveness, and unfailing help, guidance and support. So let's begin with a favourite hymn that celebrates God's care for each one of us.
Dear Lord and Father of mankind, forgive our foolish ways. Reclothe us in our rightful mind, in purer lives thy service find, in deeper reverence praise.
Wallingford Parish Church Choir with Dear Lord and Father of Mankind that always seems to feature in any poll of favourite hymns. The Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist Richard Powers once said, "The best arguments in the world won't change a single person's point of view. The only thing that can do that is a good story." He was probably thinking of his own abilities as a storyteller when he said that, but it set me thinking. Yes, I do find it easy to remember good stories, and ones that are true with a powerful message can change my point of view. I wonder if perhaps this is why Jesus taught his followers by constantly telling them story after story. Here are 3 true stories as 3 people reflect on their relationship with their Father.
Last night I dreamt I was dancing with my dad. Round and round and round we floated in an effortless waltz, our feet barely touching the dance floor. It felt as if our own momentum could carry us to the very edge of space and time. It's not a dream I've ever had before, and I can't think what prompted it. It can't be drawn from memory because I never danced with Dad when he was alive. He was far too frail for that. To say I was a daddy's girl is an understatement. The first sentence I ever tried to string together was, "Time strike, Daddy come." I would wait by the front door for him to get back from work, and when I was old enough I was even allowed to go and meet him at the factory gates. One of my most vivid childhood memories is of waiting for him to arrive home, and of my mother bending down to look intently into my 7-year-old face, warning me not to run and jump into Dad's arms, as I'd been used to doing. He'd been in hospital. He'd had surgery. I must be careful not to hurt him. Although Dad still looked the same, he never was the same after that. No more boisterous games, no more being swung high in the air, no more wild football tackles. Instead, he would read to me. He was a natural storyteller with a fine sense of the dramatic. He would close the book with a decisive thwack, just as the hero entered the haunted house, or the heroine was about to be cut off by the incoming tide, so that my sister and I could hardly contain ourselves until the next evening's instalment. And as the years went by, and he became weaker and even more frail, we had to be quiet so as not to disturb him. And as his world contracted, so we went out and brought back stories to interest or amuse him. We'd do crosswords, listen to the radio together, or just talk. On good days, he would play the piano and we'd sing. But we never danced. He was never strong enough for that. Until last night. It's 18 years now since Dad died, but in my dream he was vividly alive. And for me it was a glimpse of heaven. For there Dad was well and strong again. All tears were wiped away. There was no more death or mourning or crying or pain. Just the dance.
My dad was interested in most sports, especially athletics, and most of all high jumping, in which he had once competed as a student. We went to athletics meetings, and he explained the relative technical attributes of the scissor style which he had used, and the straddle, the western roll, and the eastern cut-off, which by then had superseded it. These too have now been abandoned in favour of the style invented by Dick Fosbury and seen by the world at the Mexico Olympics in 1968, which we watched avidly on the TV, which involves going over the bar head first and backwards. It shouldn't work, but it was amazingly successful. Dad was very dubious about the Fosbury Flop when it came in, and now I can understand that this new style marked the end of the world he knew. Dad was a traditionalist in many ways, and his faith was pretty traditional. It wasn't about what you said, but how you lived. He was the kind of person people turned to in a crisis. He would give honest but encouraging advice. He put other people first. And he showed his children how to jump, scissor style, over a rope tied between two trees in long summer holidays. None of us did become athletes, but I'd like to think we've all become a bit like our dad.
You must remember this. A kiss is still a kiss. A sigh's just a sigh. The fundamental things apply.
To most people, if they've heard of him at all, Harry Nilsson is that guy who had a hit with the song Without You, or maybe Everybody's Talking, the theme from the movie Midnight Cowboy. But back in 1973, Nilsson surprised his critics by releasing an album of old-time classics, backed by full orchestra, called A Little Touch of Smielsen in the Night. I don't think it was much of a commercial success, but I do know that it blew my mum and dad away. They caught sight of Nilsson performing songs from the album on a BBC special late one night. I must have been sent to bed long before, fair enough, I was only 8 at the time, and it was pretty much all they could talk about the next day. My dad was particularly taken with the relaxed way Harry would lean against the piano, light himself a cigarette and finish his first few puffs just in time to sing the next line of the song. Mum went out and bought the record shortly afterwards, and trust me, we didn't have much money to throw around in those days, so it's a measure of just how much they loved the music. It was on the turntable regularly for the next few weeks, and months, and years. I suppose I could have avoided the music. It was hardly cutting edge for a growing lad, but somehow it got under my skin, and years later I'm still word perfect on all the songs. Harry Nilsson died of a massive heart attack in January 1994, aged 52. My dad died of lung cancer a year later, in January 1995, aged 59. A longer innings than Harry, true, but that's small consolation. It's such a cliché to say that time is a great healer. More than 15 years after his death, it still hurts. But I have found the cliché is true. I wouldn't have dared listen to Smielsen shortly after Dad died, as I know I would have howled my eyes out. But over time, listening to the album became a way of remembering my father. And in the midst of the sadness, I have found that it's the good memories that remain. I can remember my dad dying, of course I can. But why would I want to, when I can put on this CD and sing along with Harry Nilsson and remember Bill McKinnon singing along with him? Rest in peace, Dad.
The world will always welcome lovers as time goes by.
Thank you to colleagues from the GRF Christian Broadcasting team in Glasgow for sharing their stories. Nearer to home, Reverend Alex Brown, who's based in Douglas, is a parent. He and his wife Amanda have 2 daughters. He's also an Anglican priest who works as a pioneer minister, devoting his time to building communities of people who want to explore or deepen Christian faith together, but who don't feel drawn to traditional church services. Instead, they want to meet in coffee shops or out in the countryside to explore faith as a community of people who bring out of each other the essence of who God has made us to be, to know God and to transform the world around us. You could say being the best possible humans. And Alex joins us now with some thoughts on what it means to be human and what God tells us about our humanity. And he's taking some words from the Bible as the basis for his thoughts. Let's start with Alex's rewording of Psalm 8.
O Lord, our Lord, the majesty of your authority fills the earth. The beauty of your nature fills the cosmos. We don't have to be scholars to talk about you. You teach the least of us to do that, even children. Speaking simple truths about you silences all who are anti-God. I look up to the night sky. Right there is a masterpiece, painted with your hands. You set them in the right places, artistically, more than just thrown together. Then there's the beauty and dignity and spirituality of humanity. What are we compared to you? And yet, in the reality of your heaven, we are only a little lower than the angels. You place a crown on our heads of honor and make us to reflect you. Oh God, you have placed humanity over all you created, over all this fragile beauty. Flocks, herds, wild animals, birds, sky, fish, over this tenderly balanced ecosystem. You trust us. O Lord, our Lord, the majesty of your authority fills the earth. The psalm says, then there's the beauty and dignity and spirituality of humanity. What are we compared to you? And yet, in the reality of your heaven, we are only a little lower than the angels. Humanity. What does that word mean to us? It's more than just being alive, more than male or female, more than the conveyor belt of birth and life and death. Humanity is capable of incredible beauty. We can create artistically, and we can write poems and scores and stories and sonnets and laments, movies and plays. We can stop to give our last meal to someone who needs it more, and it's nothing to do with our skin tone, our age, our symmetrical look, or our hair. Humanity has dignity. Watching a new baby being born or seeing someone at the end of their life, we suddenly become acutely aware of the dignity of life, the sanctity of life itself. We are more than chemicals with a consciousness. Humanity has a spirituality. We can know each other in such deep, deep ways, far beyond friendship. And we can know God, the reality of God and God's Spirit in a relationship with ourselves. The Bible even describes us as only a little lower than angels. I wonder who's come to mind as we talk like this? Whose life stories strike you as reflecting the beauty of God, the dignity of God, the spiritual reality of God? Describe them and thank God for them. The psalm says, the crown we wear given by God to humanity is his character at work in us. Throughout God's love letter to the world, the Bible, we find example after example of people who take the crown given to us seriously, the crown that's God's character. In the middle of an often broken, bruised, abusive world, there are acts so opposite to selfishness and so far away from greed that they have stood the test of time. A king who welcomes a man with a crippled leg to eat every day from the royal table. A leader who pleads with God on behalf of a stubborn people. A man willing to forgive his brothers for selling him as a slave. A widow willing to make bread for a visitor, knowing it may be the last meal she ever makes. A man dying on a cross who forgives the very people who put him there. It seems that it could well be the darkest moments of humanity that allow those who shine to shine even more brightly. As the darkness sets in, the light that was always there cannot be extinguished and gives light to others. Remember some of your own darkest times. Were there lights around you? How did God's character of love, peace, patience, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, joy, and self-control shine in your life from either you or from someone else? In the second story of creation, right at the start of the Hebrew ancient scriptures, God reaches down into the earth before he's made any animals or any plants, and from the dust of the ground he forms a human. Then God does what he does not do with anything else in creation. He breathes his life-giving spirit into us, and we become alive. This tender, delicate, even intimate creation story tells us of a God who is a perfect Father. It tells us of care and of a deep sharing of himself with humanity. To be human is to carry the breath of God, the Spirit of God within us. This breath is in all humanity, whether we recognize God or not. We are made in his image in this way. But God's Spirit can lie dormant within us, as if we're somehow spiritually asleep on the inside. We can allow ourselves to be ruled not by the spiritual reality of our eternity, but by the temporary demands of the chemicals, the dust that make us up. Oh, but we are so much more than chemicals, more like angelic beings than we know. Jesus was constantly speaking to people about their spirituality. He said that there was a way to know God and to be light-filled beings, and that he was that way, a doorway to awakening, and that he was that door, life in abundance, and that he was that life. How alive to the eternal spiritual life breathed into you do you currently feel? Let's make some space now and ask God to show us who we really are spiritually. It's so often simple to identify the beauty and the majesty of God in those we admire. Spiritual giants in our lives who we feel find faith so easy. It's far less easy to do the same with those we find difficult. People who maybe have offended us or offended others. The people who cause trouble and make us feel small or inadequate or sometimes even afraid. And then there's ourselves. Most people find it much easier to accept the idea that humans in general are destined to carry the image of God. Simple even to identify that image in someone else. But in ourselves, too big a leap. We say, if you really knew me, you wouldn't say that I reflect God. And yet that isn't our call to make. If a basic fact of the matter is that God has woven his divine spark into every human, then that spark is there in those we find painful and even in ourselves. Maybe it's time that we recognize that spark in exactly the people that we do struggle with. This is not the same as saying their actions are godlike or even okay, but it is saying that they carry the mark of God and are worth the world to God. Maybe it's time we took seriously that anyone who comes to Jesus in faith of being forgiven is fully cleared of their guilt and made right. A clean slate every moment of every day, including ourselves. Maybe for yourself, God is asking you now to open yourself up to the possibility that he loves you with an unlimited love, and he longs for you to shine out with the essence of divinity that was always there inside you.
Come be with me, all you carry heavy burdens. I will give you rest. I will give you rest. Come be with me, all you carry heavy burdens. I will give you rest. I will give you rest. Come be with me, all you carry heavy burdens. I will give you rest. I will give you rest. Come be with me, all you carry heavy burdens.
And thank you, Pioneer Minister Reverend Alex Brown. If you'd like to make contact with Alex, have a look at his website. It's very simple, pioneer.im, pioneer.im, and you'll find all the details of his ministry there and how you can get in touch with him. And now, as usual, we finish with a look at our notice board, beginning with information for today, Sunday the 16th. It's not too late to take a look at the art exhibition in Orrisdale Chapel. It's open again today from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Admission is just £2.50, which includes refreshments. Proceeds are for chapel repairs, and there'll be a variety of art to purchase at reasonable prices. Sandygate Methodist Chapel are celebrating the 162nd chapel anniversary with a service in Sandygate Chapel tonight at 6:30. And there's a special invitation for anyone who's had any association with the chapel in past years to come along this evening and share in the anniversary celebrations. And also at 6:30 tonight, the Mariners Choir will be in Laxey Methodist Church on Minorca Hill in Laxey, with supper and community hymn singing after the service, and as always a warm welcome for friends old and new. The season of Wednesday evening concerts in St Thomas's Church in Douglas has restarted, and this Wednesday at 7:45, the Isle of Man Arts Council Community Choir, conducted by Dr Mandy Griffin, will bring you an hour of popular music, and there'll be refreshments afterwards. There's no admission charge, just a retiring collection if you'd like to help church funds. And St Thomas's is just off the promenade near the Gaiety Theatre here in Douglas. This Thursday, the 20th, you're invited to lunch at the Cool Chapel Hall. Pop in between noon and 2 p.m. for the usual delicious homemade soups and desserts, followed by tea or coffee, costing just £7 per person. Good food and good company too, and the Cool Chapel Hall is on Cool Road, just at the top end of the Isle of Man Business Park. And now some events next weekend. Bride Methodist Chapel have a coffee morning in Ramsey Town Hall next Saturday the 22nd from 10 a.m. Pop in for a cuppa and a chat. There'll be homemade cakes on sale and a raffle too. And next Sunday, the 23rd, the Mariners Choir will be in Sandygate Chapel, when the preacher will be Mrs Jean Guthrie. And as usual, the service will be followed by supper and community hymn singing. And I'm afraid that's all we've time for now, but I'll be back later in our virtual lounge tonight from 9 o'clock onwards. But the easy listening music and your requests and dedications are very real, and I'd love you to join me if you can. So, until whenever we meet again, this is Judith saying thank you for listening, and I wish you and those you love a blessed and peaceful week and a very good morning.